Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 2 of the relationship series. I'm really happy to be joined today by Victoria Green. I've known Victoria for a couple of years, and Victoria is someone who's done the Clarity Practitioner Program with me. She's an independent natural juice therapist, and she's a founder of Walks with Wisdom, which is a really interesting project that she's running, which specialises in helping people to tap into their natural intelligence, to overcome addictions, cravings, and habitual behaviours by taking them out into the countryside. So, welcome, Victoria.
Hi, Ankush. Pleased to be here.
It's great to have you on the audio. Today, we're going to be talking about relationships, and I believe specifically we'll be talking about how to show up when you're already in a relationship. Is there anything you want to say kind of before we just jump into it in terms of how you've come here? Because I've seen a huge change in the last couple of years in you and kind of what you've been up to.
Yeah, I think I guess I volunteered for this because I mean, when I first joined the Clarity Practitioner Program, it was about helping me work with my clients and helping me to basically motivate them into changing what they eat. And actually, over the last 2 years, it's had a huge impact on my life. And one of the areas that pretty much changed right at the beginning was the relationships that I have with everybody, but particularly at home, and some of my like really close friendships, and I just thought that would be really good to share.
That's so interesting because I've found that so many people that have done the program with you and I have had so many different impacts, which are different to those that they came into the program with. So while it's really cool, it's also not surprising and something that I found myself. Could perhaps we could just start off with perhaps just telling us about what your relationship was like before and perhaps some of the key things that have changed. And I know you've got a couple of stories you'd want to share with us as well.
Yeah, so I guess like before I started on this course, I used to be quite uptight. It's not nice admitting that, but I did. I needed everything to be just right, and it never was just right. So I was always angry with everything, and often unhappy and unwilling to join in and get up. And we've got 3 girls here, so it's lovely to do things with them. But I was always also like quite paranoid as well, and it didn't matter what my partner did. It was never enough, or he like in some ways could never prove himself enough, and yeah, we don't have any of that now. And I think the biggest, you hear people say that well, I used to hear people say that you're feeling, you're thinking, and I used to think that I knew what that meant. And it just so happens that I'll just share this with you if you like. But one day we were going out for a walk, it was, and we were getting the girls ready, getting in the car, and that used to really annoy me, that we had to get in the car to go for a walk. It's like, what's that all about? We'd drive for an hour and do a 10-minute walk, and it's like, that's not a walk, it's a drive. And so they were getting in the car, and I was getting everything ready. I used to have to get sun cream and sun hats in case it was sunny, and raincoats and jumpers in case it cooled down, and they were all sat in the car, and I was running round getting all this ready, and as I was doing it, I was getting crosser and crosser, and I was getting a bit of food in case we needed that, and so I locked up, and I was just fuming that it was left for me again, and I imagine them sat in the car waiting kind of impatiently, and you know, they could have helped, and it was all building up, and I sat in the car and I just thought, who wants to go on a walk anyway? And as I said it, I almost like laughed just aloud, because I love walking. I mean I'm like, I've just created a new group to go walking in nature. It's one of like my passions, and so I sat there and I was like, well, who'd want to go walking anyway? And it just hit me that I was the only one getting grumpy. You know, they were all sat there ready to go on a day of fun, and I'd been carrying all this stuff around. I hadn't been thinking about the fact that Matt had got up and made all the breakfast, got them dressed, washed up, actually got them in the car. You know, I hadn't been thinking about all that stuff. I'd just been thinking about all the things we possibly didn't even need anyway. And in that second, when I saw it, I just realised I could hold on to it, you know, and spoil that day for me and probably everyone else, or I could just let it go and have fun. And I let it go, and the beautiful thing is, I just didn't seem to pick it up again. You know, I always caught myself from then on, and nothing seemed that serious. I mean, if you see me now, we go on holidays, and it's like 10 minutes before we go, and I just throw some things into a suitcase, and I'm like, well, if we haven't got it, we'll just do without. And but that in of its, that one insight, that just realising that it was my thinking that was making me cross, and nothing that was happening, has changed our entire relationship. I just don't get angry anymore, or cross. You know, nothing's an issue, and it's just beautiful to live that way. It's like nothing. It just put me in mind of that. You know that Gandhi quote: "No one can hurt you without your permission." And it's like, it's not what anybody's doing or not doing. That's totally irrelevant. It's all about what's going on up here, and how you're reacting to what's going on, or what you're thinking about it. And when you realise that, it just makes life so much easier.
Thanks for sharing that. It reminded me many years ago that I was quite into self-development books and reading and listening to stuff all of the time. And one of the first ideas I came across was, it's much, much easier to change yourself than it is to change another person. And up until that point, all I had seen my issues were based on were other people. You know, it was always someone else making me feel a certain way. And as soon as I thought, well, let me change myself. Let me look at me, which was far more in my control. All of my relationships started to change. And it sounds like the only thing that has changed for you is how you show up.
Yeah. Totally. And what I'm noticing as well is that as I show up with less thinking on my mind, I'm more present to the people around me, and I can listen more deeply, and I'm more connected, and that's having a knock-on effect in all my relationships. So with my children, I'm really listening to what they're actually saying. You know, it's not just background noise. They're not just making a noise for the sake of it. I'm tuning into what they actually want, and what they're actually unhappy about. And just people, friends, rather than thinking, oh, what should I say to this next? I'm going with less thinking, and I'm just listening to them, I'm probably like the closest that I've been in years, since school, to the friends that we hang around with and stuff, and it's just lovely.
I'm curious, and maybe this is a leading question, but how are your kids looking to you now, and how does your partner look to you now? You know, is it just the fact that they're the same and you've changed, or have they now changed as you've changed?
I think my partner has always kind of had a glimpse of this. You know, he would never speak from a stressed or angry frame of mind anyway. You know, he'd always recognised that he could see it better once he'd calmed down. But the children, the girls, they can tell the difference between when you're truly listening and when you're not. And they'll pick up on it straight away. And yeah, even Elizabeth, who's only 6, will come out with things like, oh, it's just your thinking, and things like that, which I've not had any conversations with her directly about it, but she must be picking that up from the way we're showing up and everything. Yeah. Something else that I wanted to share, because I don't know, you might get, all your interviewees might come on saying it's like a bed of roses and everything like that, but what I wanted to share is something that I'd noticed, because as my thinking's dropping away, and I'm able to connect with people more fully, then I'm finding that in those moments of like pure connection, you can feel a real love for people. And I don't know if you've felt the same, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but like, especially people that you've spent time with on the course, and you've seen them change, and you have developed quite a deep connection with them. I genuinely like love some of those guys. And sometimes this is quite hard to admit and share. So, but like sometimes at home, you know, it's not that I wake up and think, oh my God, I love you so much, you know, I've got this understanding and now I love you every single day, and it's just perfect. Sometimes I don't feel that. And that's been really, in the past, that's been really confusing and hard. And it's like, well, what does that mean then? Does that mean that we're not, you know, I've changed so much? Does that mean we're not compatible anymore? Because you're not changing. You know, are we going in different directions? And something that So I was discussing this with someone fairly recently, and they asked just a simple question, something like, well, what does love mean to you? And straight away it put me in mind, I just had this real vivid recollection of, because I've got 3 girls, and my eldest, Sophie, is like 7 years older than her next sister. So when she was about like 5 or 6, or it may have even been when I was pregnant with her sister Elizabeth, I used to get really scared because I loved Sophie so much. I had just like I loved her more than I'd loved anything else in my whole life before, and I loved her so much that I would change my behaviour to set an example, you know, like I'd try and teach her by showing her, and it scared me to think about having another child, because I thought, what would happen? Like, what would happen if I didn't love the next child as much as I loved Sophie, you know, and I had favourites? Or if that love was split, you know, I couldn't imagine it. And what actually happened was, when I had Elizabeth, I loved her just as much. And so I was having this conversation, and as we were speaking, this memory just came flooding back, and I was overcome with what love really is. And it's infinite, and it's ever expanding, and it's always there. It's always there when our thoughts drop away. You know, so, and when your thoughts drop away and you're fully present and connected with someone, it's there, and it comes from you, it comes from within. So when you're not feeling it, what I'm trying to say is it's nothing to do with what that other person is or isn't doing, or how they're showing up. The only reason that you're not feeling it is because you've got a lot of thinking going on. And when that thinking dies down again, you can feel it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love what you said, and it just made me think about how many times that, you know, I've looked in the past to other people to give me a feeling, you know, and we hear all of these quotes on Facebook and sayings and everything that, you know, you need to love yourself first and love comes from inside. but then innocently, at the same time, we still look for a feeling from other people. And actually, what I hear you say is that mistakenly, when we're not feeling loving, we start looking outside of ourselves to see what has caused that.
Yeah.
Is it you? Did you make me feel not so good today? Maybe it's my boss. Maybe it's my kids. Maybe it's my partner. Maybe it's because it's raining. And we try and attribute our feeling to something. And I know I did that for years. And then sometimes when there isn't a reason, then you're in real trouble. Because then you're like, oh, I've got nothing to blame it on. And I love that the way you put it was, it's just there already. When you get out of your head, it's there. And it's certainly what my experience has been, that quite often when I'm not in a great place, I'm overthinking. And I'm confused about where it looks like my feelings are coming from. And from that place, I normally make bad decisions. So just to move forward, I guess, there was a story you wanted to share about a plane, and you didn't tell me what it was, but I was very intrigued as to what this plane story is.
Actually, that's not an actual story. It's just.
Oh.
I guess it's more of a. It's a way. It's a way that I found useful to understand how you could feel, how your feelings could come from your thinking. Because I know when I first heard that, I'd be like, yeah, but I'm thinking this because they're doing that kind of thing. And so I often imagine that if, say a plane was delayed and there were 100 people on that plane and they were all sat there waiting to hear about when the next plane was, like when it was actually taking off, every single person could be feeling something different. You know, one person might think, oh, excellent, I'm going to miss another day off work. I wasn't expecting that, and they could be really happy about it. Another person could think, oh my God, another day off work, that's like X amount of emails. Another person could think, yay, X amount of emails I don't have to look at. And someone else might think, oh, I had a taxi booked, I've got to change it, and I don't know when the next flight is. You know, they could be quite stressed, and every single person sat there could be in a different frame of mind, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with the plane. You know, it's all about what they're thinking about it in that moment. And it's just something that I share with clients sometimes, that are finding it hard to see that it's not what somebody else is doing or what they're not doing. It's what's going on inside.
And just on that, you kind of mentioned something that you share with clients. If there are people listening to this call and they're in a relationship and they want to have a more loving relationship, they want to have more of what you've had and what you've described, what would you suggest to them that they do?
know, something that came to me the other day was that, like, the art of making magic moments is actually just being really present to what's going on. And by that, I mean, we all go about our days doing things and not really paying attention to what we're doing or who we're with. We're paying attention to what we should be doing or what we were doing or what we've got to do later, and we're carrying a lot of that round with us. And the less we have of that, and the more we get present with what's actually going on in the moment, the more we'll notice how magic that really is. And the more we'll show up like loving and happy and satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly I find a lot more love, joy, happiness available to us in our current relationships than perhaps a lot of people realise. Than I realised previously. So thanks, Victoria. I think it's probably time for us to wrap it up there. Where can people find out more about you if they want to get in contact, if they want to go on a trek and spend some time with you doing some walking?
The best way is to either email me at vicstar, VICSTAR, at btinternet.com, or to find me on Facebook, Victoria Green. And either read about it on there or just send me a message, and I'll get back to them.
Fantastic. And for anyone that wants to get in contact with myself, it's facebook.com/Ankush Jain Ltd, and that's my Facebook page, and you can contact me through that. Thanks for listening, and thanks for Victoria for sharing your time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.